Today, we're diving into the remarkable world of the Amish community and uncovering how they manage to keep meat fresh for months, sometimes up to 60% longer than usual, without relying on electric refrigeration. It's an incredible glimpse into a tradition that balances time-tested methods, respect for nature, and meticulous attention to detail. If you've ever wondered how off-grid living can still provide safe, quality foods, get ready to be inspired. We'll delve into the hidden practices that allow the Amish to salt, smoke, can, and store meat using simple but highly effective strategies, all while maintaining an unwavering commitment to resourcefulness. Whether you're interested in self-reliance, exploring alternative lifestyles, or just curious about how people thrived long before modern technology, this video will illuminate the core principles behind these extraordinary off-grid preservation techniques. Number 1. Traditional foundations. Amish communities have relied on minimal technology for centuries, shaping unique strategies that keep meat edible far longer than most outsiders might imagine. Unlike modern households, they cannot simply open a fridge or a freezer to store large quantities of food. Their dedication to remaining off-grid has compelled them to preserve meat with resourceful tactics that draw on ancestral knowledge passed down through generations. Many of these communities originated from European regions where salting, drying, and smoking were key survival techniques. After settling in North America, they learned to adapt these old-world approaches to new climates, experimenting with local wood types for smoking, variations in humidity for drying, and creative storage solutions that minimize spoilage. Over time, a collective wisdom emerged, helping them extend meat's shelf life by astonishing percentages, often cited at around 60% longer than standard unrefrigerated methods. Such achievements are not the result of any single procedure. Rather, they represent a vast toolkit of interlocking steps that begin with the way the meat is harvested and continue through precise handling, sanitation, and environmental controls. Each of these steps is fine-tuned through practical observation rather than purely scientific data, though in practice, the outcomes align with principles microbiologists could confirm. For instance, the Amish often pay close attention to the timing of butchering, favoring cooler months or specific days within a season to exploit natural temperature drops. By doing so, they reduce immediate microbial growth and buy themselves precious extra hours for initial processing. This can significantly lower the risk of contamination before the preservation stages even begin. One element that sets these communities apart is their dedication to cleanliness, which might surprise modern observers who imagine high-tech facilities are required for proper sanitation. In Amish settings, the concept of clean is not reliant on chemical cleaners or advanced sterilizing machines. Instead, it's grounded in methodical washing with hot water, homemade soaps, and frequent equipment checks. Even the layout of a butchering area can be carefully planned to reduce cross-contamination. Surfaces where meat is cut are washed repeatedly, knives are rinsed in boiled water, and stray scraps are quickly removed so that pests or insects don't gain a foothold. These basics form a crucial foundation that ultimately enables them to store meat for extended periods without modern refrigeration. Another key factor is the mindset that waste is unacceptable. In many Amish circles, every part of the animal is used, whether it's turned into broth, rendered fat, sausages, or other products. With a holistic approach that values the entire animal, families put added care into each step of preservation. This level of detail extends to portion sizes and types of cuts. By meticulously dividing the carcass according to size and lean-to-fat ratios, they can determine which pieces are best for specific preservation methods. Leaner portions might be salted and dried, while fattier sections could be rendered to create lard, which in turn becomes a natural sealant for confit-style storage. Each approach works in tandem to keep harmful bacteria at bay. In addition, there's a social component underpinning these practices. Communities host butchering days where several families come together to help each other harvest and process multiple animals at once. During these gatherings, knowledge is transmitted from seasoned elders to younger members, reinforcing best practices in real time. For instance, an elder might point out a suboptimal salting technique or caution that the brines ratio is off. Rather than wait until the following year to correct these mistakes, the entire group has an opportunity to learn on the spot. As a result, new generations gain hands-on experience that's difficult to replicate in settings that rely heavily on modern conveniences. This communal environment, paired with a cultural inclination to share wisdom freely within the community, ensures that no single family operates in isolation. Everyone benefits from centuries of collective trial and error, and thus the knowledge remains robust, adaptable, and up-to-date. Finally, an underlying principle is the harmony with natural resources. Instead of assuming technology will solve every preservation challenge, Amish communities adapt to seasonal patterns. If the weather is particularly humid, they might rely more on salting or canning. If there's a cold snap, they might move freshly butchered meats outdoors to take advantage of the low temperatures for a preliminary chill. Every year may introduce slight variations in their approach, proving that these hidden methods are far from static. This flexibility, rooted in both tradition and practical need, sets the Amish preservation approach apart, revealing how creativity and community can overcome the lack of electric refrigeration and still achieve remarkable results. Number 2, multi-stage preservation methods. The Amish meat preservation repertoire typically begins with basic but crucial steps, like draining blood and removing internal organs quickly after slaughter, which prevents bacterial overgrowth in the early hours. However, the true magic lies in layered techniques that prevent spoilage for prolonged periods. Salting and brining rank high on this list. By introducing salt to the meat, either via direct rubbing or submerging cuts in a salted solution, moisture is drawn out from cells. This dehydration effect makes the environment inhospitable to microbes, significantly slowing decay. Brine solutions might also include sugar, herbs, or mild spices, which boost both flavor and shelf life. The Amish don't randomly guess these salt-to-water ratios. They maintain carefully recorded guidelines that have been perfected over repeated cycles of trial, observation, and refinement. Some families might incorporate a pinch of nitrates through naturally occurring elements in certain salts, though the emphasis remains on pure, simple ingredients. After the salting or brining phase, which can last from a couple of days to over a week, the meat is typically rinsed and air-dried, preparing it for smoking. Smoking functions on multiple levels. The heat helps eliminate surface microbes, while the wood smoke deposits compounds that further inhibit bacterial and fungal growth. The type of wood used can differ from one community to another, based on local availability. For instance, some favor hickory or oak for a heartier flavor. Others use fruit woods like apple or cherry for a subtler, sweeter note. Families might even adjust the wood choice based on the type of meat they're preserving. Pork, beef, venison, and poultry all respond differently to smoke, prompting slight modifications in smoking times and temperatures. Following the smokehouse phase, the meat may be hung in a well-ventilated area for several days, allowing it to cool and acclimate. This resting period is essential for letting flavors set, while also ensuring any residual moisture evaporates. It might happen in a dedicated shed or an airy part of the barn, where adjustable vents or windows can be managed to control airflow. In times of rain or high humidity, A watchful eye is kept for signs of mold, which can be addressed by wiping affected areas with vinegar or saltwater solutions. Through this combination of salting, brining, smoking, and controlled drying, the Amish effectively reduce moisture content to a level that significantly extends shelf life, often doubling or tripling what would be expected if the meat were left untreated in a basic pantry. Another complementary strategy is the use of rendered fat. Here, the meat, often cooked or partly cured first, is submerged in hot lard. As the fat cools and solidifies, it forms an airtight seal around the meat. This approach, reminiscent of French confit, works particularly well for smaller portions or specialized dishes, such as preserved sausage patties or chunks of slow-cooked pork. Families can open these fat-sealed containers well after butchering season, scooping out portions as needed and reheating them on a wood-burning stove. The solidified fat also has secondary uses, such as frying or even soap making, reflecting the Amish principle of waste minimization. Canning offers yet another dynamic tool. While we often associate canning with fruits and vegetables, pressure canning meats under high heat is also common. Large canning pots, sometimes heated on propane stoves to achieve consistent temperatures, bring jars to a boil sufficient to kill harmful bacteria. These jars are then sealed, creating a vacuum inside. Once cooled, they can be stored in root cellars or pantries for extended periods, providing a quick meal option that only requires reheating. The combination of an airtight seal and thorough heat treatment makes canned meat remarkably stable. Indeed, many Amish families rely on shelves full of canned meats, chicken, beef, venison, and more, to see them through harsh winters or busy farming seasons. Each of these parallel methods, whether salt-based or heat-based, underscores the Amish dedication to building redundancy into their system. If one approach fails due to environmental or logistical challenges, another is likely to provide the necessary backup, ensuring a consistent supply of protein regardless of the season. Number 3, environmental controls and storage innovations. One of the most intriguing aspects of Amish meat preservation is how they incorporate environmental factors into every stage. Their smokehouses, for instance, aren't randomly built structures. Many are located in spots where prevailing winds can carry smoke away at a steady pace, preventing stagnation or overly dense smoke. The floors and walls might be made of specific materials, stone, brick, or wooden planks treated for fire resistance to help maintain consistent temperature levels. Vents can be opened or closed to regulate airflow, crucial for achieving that precise balance between thoroughly smoking the meat and preventing it from drying out too rapidly. Beyond the smokehouse, root cellars are a hallmark of Amish homesteads. While root cellars are mainly associated with storing root vegetables and canned goods, they also provide a cool, stable environment for hanging dried or smoked meats. Situated partially or fully underground, these spaces capitalize on the Earth's natural insulation properties. The temperatures typically hover in the 40 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit or 4 to 10 degrees Celsius range, though fluctuations happen depending on local climate and how the cellar is constructed. Proper insulation and ventilation systems minimize extreme temperature swings. Some root cellars might feature gravel floors that absorb excess moisture or have a drainage system to keep humidity at an ideal level. In colder regions, families might deepen these cellars or reinforce the walls with stone to guard against freezing. In milder climates, they'll adjust ventilation to avoid mold growth, ensuring an environment that remains consistently cool. Another approach is the use of attic or barn rafters for air drying. While this might sound risky to those who fear pests, Amish households employ various measures to keep insects or rodents at bay. Mesh screens can be installed, or the area might be temporarily sealed off when not in use. The high vantage point and exposure to breezes can accelerate drying, especially for lean meats. Some families harness the natural cycle of day-to-night temperature variations, which gently aids in further drawing out moisture. They do, however, remain alert to weather patterns. If a humid storm front moves in, they'll shift meat to a drier location or accelerate the smoking process to protect the product. This close monitoring of seasonal and daily atmospheric changes is a hallmark of Amish practicality. They don't rely on a single mechanical device. Instead, they adapt in real time, using generations of collective wisdom to guide their decisions. Where infiltration by pests is a concern, families might also employ creative solutions like storing meat in protective barrels lined with straw and cloth. Though it might seem rudimentary compared to modern pest control measures, these methods have proven effective. The straw creates an additional barrier against temperature swings, while the cloth keeps dust and debris off the meat. Some Amish even place herbal sachets containing mint or lavender around storage areas, capitalizing on the natural repellent properties of these plants. Combined with consistent checks, these strategies help prevent infestations and mold outbreaks. All these methods demonstrate a delicate interplay between human ingenuity and the natural environment. Instead of forcing a perfect climate with high-tech tools, the Amish read and respond to natural cues. They know the difference between a brisk wind that helps cure meat and a moisture-laden front that could ruin it. Through daily vigilance and community-level information sharing, they can keep track of changing conditions, ensuring their multi-stage system remains both effective and adaptable. This balancing act ultimately lets them extend meat shelf life far beyond what most people consider feasible without refrigeration, showcasing how traditional expertise often matches or surpasses modern technology when used correctly. Number 4. Social dynamics and future outlook. The Amish approach to off-grid living is a cultural choice rather than a mere technological limitation, and this fact heavily influences how meat preservation knowledge evolves within their communities. They don't typically consult mainstream scientific publications or watch online tutorials. Instead, they refine processes by observing results, discussing them among peers, and carefully tweaking variables. Large families and cooperative gatherings play a central role, turning each preservation cycle into a community event rather than a solitary chore. This inclusive dynamic keeps standards high because no one wants to present their neighbors with poorly preserved or unsafe meat. Word of spoilage spreads quickly, driving families to remain vigilant about sanitation and method consistency. At the same time, there's a quiet willingness among some Amish groups to adopt limited modern tools if they don't compromise core values. A handful of communities may use battery-powered thermometers to gauge smokehouse temperatures or to verify that pressure canning has reached the proper threshold. Others might permit the brief use of propane-powered cooling to temporarily store meat in especially hot summers. These incremental accommodations don't replace the broader reliance on tradition. Rather, they supplement it, providing an additional margin of safety or convenience in particular situations. The overarching guideline is to remain as self-sufficient as possible, anchored in faith-based principles that prioritize simplicity and a rejection of unnecessary worldly conveniences. This careful negotiation between old and new ensures the continuity of off-grid preservation while also acknowledging changing realities like climate shifts or evolving health regulations. From an economic perspective, these methods can serve as a source of income or trade. Amish households often sell meat products like smoked hams, sausages, or jerky at local markets or roadside stands, drawing customers intrigued by artisanal, naturally preserved foods. This small-scale commerce forms part of a local economy where families exchange or barter goods. Reputation matters greatly. Consistently producing flavorful, long-lasting products builds trust among neighbors and outside customers. These relationships bolster communal bonds and provide extra funds that might be reinvested in farmland, horses, building materials, or additional preservation supplies. It's a cycle that fosters resilience. The stronger the community's traditional skills, the more stable their overall economy becomes. New challenges, however, always loom on the horizon. Changes in state or federal food safety laws can pressure Amish communities to adjust procedures, especially if they wish to sell beyond private transactions. Rising costs of staple items like salt, sugar, or canning jars can also test the adaptability of certain families, particularly those with many children to feed. Extreme weather events, linked in part to global climate changes, might disrupt predictable curing and drying schedules. Despite these stresses, the Amish reliance on diversified, time-tested methods often gives them a buffer. If one approach fails or becomes temporarily unviable, another can fill the gap. By continuing to educate each new generation in these skills, they preserve a form of food security that doesn't hinge on a stable electrical grid. Moreover, interest from outside communities, homesteaders, preppers, sustainable living advocates, provides additional incentive for some Amish families to share or sell their knowledge. Workshops or Q&A sessions with non-Amish participants do occur, albeit infrequently, offering a glimpse into how these robust systems operate. Off-grid enthusiasts may visit Amish farms to learn about best practices in salting, brining, or constructing a low-tech smokehouse. While there's an ever-present desire among the Amish to avoid too much entanglement with mainstream culture, selective educational exchanges can result in beneficial cross-pollination of ideas. For instance, non-Amish visitors might introduce a new type of spice or a slightly more efficient canning pot, which the Amish could test and adapt if it aligns with their way of life. In essence, these meat preservation methods endure because they are more than just tactics. They represent a cultural identity centered on self-reliance, community collaboration, and the stewardship of resources. Even as modern society accelerates its reliance on electricity and convenience, the Amish example proves that alternative solutions exist. Solutions that combine practicality, tradition, and a willingness to engage with nature's rhythms. Their ability to extend meat shelf life by 60% without refrigeration isn't just a culinary curiosity. It's a testament to the power of collective wisdom and deliberate, thoughtful living. By continuing to refine, share, and guard these methods, Amish communities offer a tangible reminder that innovation doesn't always mean discarding the past. Sometimes it means quietly perfecting it, one salted cut of meat at a time,